Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of Breaking Through, the Alina Abovian podcast. My guest for this week is Sabrina Zohar. Sabrina is a relationship guru, and she's helped hundreds of thousands of people through coaching and her very popular podcast, The Sabrina Zohar Show, a no BS guide to dating, relationships, and coming home to yourself. In this episode, Sabrina and I take a deep dive into the realities of modern love, our childhood wounds, various attachment styles, and how to break free from our own patterns. Because the real work isn't just about finding the right person. It's also about becoming the version of you that feels whole, secure, and unapologetically authentic. Sabrina Zohar, welcome to the show.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. How long have I been stalking you on Instagram?
We finally made it happen, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. You know what I love about your content? You're huge on social media, but you actually care about the advice you're giving to people. It's not about those catchy TikTok relationship advice that really just hurts people more than it helps them, but you actually care. And that's what I love about the information you're putting out there. And that's why I really, really wanted you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you. I take it really seriously because in my head, if I give advice or I say something to somebody and they implement that, then that's also me being partially responsible for the outcome of their decisions. And I hold that responsibility really heavily because truth be told, like I was her, right? I was the girl that listened to a lot of that clickbait and wasn't getting anywhere. And I know we're going to get into that. But moral of the story is, yes, I'm super excited to talk about all the fun stuff about dating and relationships.
So you've come a really long way from who you were when you were dating and all of those patterns to who you are now, having this huge platform where you're giving people advice. What was it like for you, and what was the inspiration in starting this?
I was the epitome of a hot mess. Like, I don't know how else to really say it besides I lived in New York for 12 years. And when I moved to New York, I really thought like I could finally be myself. I'm from Florida. It never really resonated with me. I'm very eccentric. I'm very off the cuff. And so I think we have to hold accountability to the people that are responsible for teaching us things. But that's really why I got into this. I was the girl that would have a panic attack if a guy didn't text me. I was the girl that would sleep with somebody within 10, 20, 30 minutes of knowing them, thinking maybe if I connect with my body, they're going to like me more. I was so disconnected from myself and so enthralled in how can I be chosen? Who's going to pick me? Who's never going to leave me? Which was childhood core beliefs and wounds just replicating and being played out in my adult life. And I was the girl that I would listen to all the clickbait. I was watching the TikToks and the Instagrams and consistently saying, but why am I not having the same results that these people are claiming I'm going to have with this? And just realizing, oh, right, it culminated when I married my father, the person that was an exact replica of him, not outwardly necessarily. It wasn't like, wow, they're a spitting image, but the way I felt with him, the way he would speak to me, the way he would demean me, the way he would gaslight me, the way he would put me down. He completely alienated me from all of my friends and family. I was 25 pounds lighter than I am now, which is incredibly concerning. And I was a shell of myself and a human. And one day I was like, I need to make a change. I just remember hitting rock bottom and my mom saying, like, I think we need to do something here. And that's when I started this journey and realizing along the way, like, I was never broken. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing to fix. I just learned a lot of really maladaptive coping mechanisms in my childhood that I was bringing into my adult life. And that was then showing up in my relationships, dating the same pattern over and over again, wondering what the problem was.
Yeah, you talk about this repetition compulsion. How was your father showing up while you were growing up that sort of modeled this type of man that you ultimately kept attracting over and over?
So I don't use this word lightly when I say it, but my father is a narcissist. And I know that, you know, the internet has taken that word and now anybody who is like thinks of themselves once is a narcissist. But my father is incredibly grandiose. To talk about accountability is not a word in his vocabulary. He was verbally and physically abusive to the children, to us, constantly in and out. Like he would leave with his mistress and go away. And we didn't know at the time, hindsight's 2020. But what I had this gnawing feeling in my gut always growing up of I'm too much, but I'm not enough. I'm too much for him. I'm pushing him away. What's wrong with me? But then I'm too much when he's there because he can't handle me.
You want to be seen, but you're not being heard.
Exactly. And so then what happened as I started to go into my dating, into relationships, I would date men. And when I say patterns, I think a lot of people are like, I don't date anybody like my parents. And it's like, how do they make you feel?
Right. It's not what they look like. It's what they're bringing out in you.
Exactly. The triggers, because triggers are normal. Triggers, to anybody who's unsure what that means, it's a neutral action or inaction that then causes dysregulation. So it's something, a cue to your nervous system that you're in danger. Now on paper, right, a trigger could be like you see somebody have a weapon and you're like, you instantly, or something comes up for you. That makes total sense that maybe that would cause you to like feel a little off. But I think a lot of people misuse that. And I was getting very triggered by the people I was dating because it was constantly reminding me of being put down, being belittled, being told that I don't know what the reality was, or that's how the famous words of my ex was, that might be your reality, but that's not the real world. And you're like, oh, okay, so you're making me question my perspective because you know better than I do. And it was a manipulation tactic.
But you gave him that power because you saw him as this authoritative figure, your father figure.
I was all I knew. It was familiar.
I did the same thing.
Right.
I
Did
met
you?
my ex-husband when I was 21. So I came from a father wound as well. My father left when I was 9. So my whole life I had this abandonment wound. And when I met my ex-husband, he's 11 years older. I gave him that power because I thought I needed that structure.
And
Because
especially
I
young.
never knew what stable love was like. So I thought I needed to perform and earn it as opposed to it being unconditional.
Especially at 21.
And he did give me that love, gave me a lot of love, great guy. But there were other things that I just couldn't voice because I felt that if I did, I'm not going to be safe here anymore.
100%. And especially up until 28, our prefrontal cortex isn't developed. So at 28, then we say like your brain is fully developed. What we're saying scientifically is that you're no longer in the process of building your brain. Once 28 happens, and this is not pop psychology, you can look it up and actually see that once 28 happens, anything that happens after that is now rewiring. So we do have neuroplasticity. Our brain can change. So at 21, for instance, when your brain is still developing and growing, it's developing and growing around other people still. Now, when we're, potentially in your 30s, 40s, 50s, as you become older, we realize, you can teach an old dog new tricks. Now we have to rewire those patterns. And that was my journey. It was up until I was about 27, 28 is when I started therapy and realizing, oh my God, I remember even what kind of changed everything for me. It's a story that really holds very dear to me. This was my ex. So we were supposed to go away to see his parents for the holidays. And his punishment to me was that he was leaving me. Sorry.
So you were married or was this an ex-boyfriend?
Married.
Oh.
So we were married and it was a very low-key thing. We were just like, let's do it, very young and not thinking things through. And I just love you and let's just be together. And I didn't really think about what that would mean if it didn't work out. And that was his, and of course at the time when he left me, I'm like, so does this mean we're broken up? Are we divorced? What are we doing here? And I was a shell of a human. He literally packed his bags and just left one day.
I remember you saying once you sat in the middle of the street wanting a bus to hit you.
Yeah, that was maybe a day after. My mom had to fly in because I told her I don't think I'm going to survive this. And I remember sitting at the table, she made me meatballs. It was my favorite meal, and just crying into the meatballs and her trying to put it
How old were you?
I was 27.
Oh, wow. So young.
And it makes me emotional thinking about it because my poor mom was just there and she was just saying, please. I remember her putting a spoon in my food to catch the tears. And she just kept saying, please, I can't lose you too. And I think I just think back on that girl and I know how hurt she was and I know how much she was going through, but I just love her so much because I know that she was doing the best she could. And at that time, I went to a Narcissist Anonymous group. I was so lost. I had nothing. And when I say I had no money, I was on food stamps. I had nothing. My partner was making most of the money. But he made me split everything down the middle. And I had just started my clothing company. The money wasn't coming through. It was a whole thing. And I couldn't even afford therapy. I didn't know what to do. Wow. So I went to a free support group. And it was on 27th and 6th or 26th and 7th. I can't remember. It was in Midtown. They're Flatiron. Mm-hmm. And I walked in and there's maybe 30 people sitting at these tables. And they go around and there's, Sabrina, do you want to talk? And I said, can maybe I go next? Could she go first? Okay, fine. And this woman goes and she's talking about how she has this amazing partner and he's so incredible. And I was just like, okay, why is she here? And so then they came to me and I was like, okay, I'll talk about my relationship. And I started talking about my, at the time, current partner who had left me and my father and just connecting, not even realizing, connecting dots. And I finished the sentence by going, but this is me. It's my fault. I'm the one who pushed him and I might be talking all these things about him, but it's my fault. And the woman just turned to me and just said, oh, honey, that wasn't okay. And I was like, what do you mean?
Sometimes we need that for someone to tell us it's not okay.
Just to hear another total stranger, right? Not your friends, not your family, this total stranger. And I looked at her and I said, but why are you here? And she said, because I was you. And she said, I was you. I had just gotten out of a terrible narcissistic relationship and I came to this group and now I'm here to show you what you could be on the other side of doing the work. And that changed it. I remember just going home being like, I'm not broken. There's nothing to fix. And I never, at that point, that one meeting changed. When he came back from the trip, I told him to get the fuck out. I told him to pack his stuff. We were done. We proceeded with the paperwork very shortly after. And I, to this day, have never spoken to him again because that part of my life was the catalyst to bringing me to where I'm at now. So I would never regret it. And I would never say it was a mistake because I wouldn't be here without it.
What do you think it takes to get over a relationship like that?
The biggest thing I think that most people forget is grief. You have to grieve the ending. You have to grieve the parts of you. Like for me, I got emotional thinking about her because I never want to forget her, but I do want to grieve the experience that she had because she was doing the best she could. That part of me, that version of me that showed up at 27, 28, didn't know any better. So if I'm going to attack her and belittle her, or if I'm going to put them on a pedestal and make it that my ex was all of these amazing things, then what I'm doing is I'm self-abandoning and I'm not actually seeing this for what it is. And so I think grieving and truly grieving, allowing yourself to say, hey, it's okay that I'm sad and hurt. This ended. And that was really painful for me, is the way we're going to get through it because you're not going to feel better until you feel. What helped you?
I'm sorry?
What helped you when you were moving on?
I'm still going through it, to be honest. I mean, it's a year and a half and it was a 16-year relationship, 10-year marriage. So plus 2 children.
It's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot to unpack. You know, it's really looking at how did I also show up and create to this dynamic?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part of the work. And then also, you know, for me, I hold on to the idea of we can be friends and we can have this situation because we have children. But I think to really, really, really grieve and to put it behind you, you have to set those boundaries that right now we need to just be very much apart. And I think I had to learn that the hard way. Additionally, just forgiving myself too, because regardless of how I see the other person, I have to look at what I did. And for me, in the end, it was my choice to leave the marriage. And as a mom, you have a lot of guilt that's associated with that. So just forgiving myself for making that choice to choose myself has been really, really hard. Because no matter what, and this is something I'm taught in my culture, is you endure, you sacrifice for your children. And that's always been ingrained in me. And I come from a divorced family. So I worked my whole life to make sure that I would never get a divorce, that I would never hurt my children in that way. And lo and behold, I made that choice. And it's something that I'm still unpacking to this day because forgiving ourselves is one of the hardest things we'll ever do.
Especially when you're grown up and conditioned to think of other people first, right? Be a good girl and don't rock the boat and you need to do what you need to do. I mean, I know even my mother's generation, I'm sure we're probably similar age. Like our parents' generation was, what was the Good Housekeeping magazine saying? What are you doing to keep your husband happy? What are you, right? And instead of us looking, because now I hear this every day, especially like I understand, right? I started dating in my 30s. It's not like I met my partner at 20 and we've been together ever since. I understand being in the trenches and going out there, especially after a marriage. And I think the reality is we have 2 ways that we could look at it. We could say, woe is me and dating's so tough and why aren't men doing or women doing, why aren't they doing what they used to back in the day? Yeah, okay, cool. What we can also look at is, wait a minute, our parents got married very much for proximity and timing. And you're here, I'm here, right? We're in a small town. Okay, cool, let's just get married.
The mentality was totally different.
Totally different. Now, granted, sure, there's an influx of people and there's the internet and there's all of these things. But to me, what I see is now, whether it be women, men, or anybody, we have a choice. We get to empower ourselves to say, I was in a marriage. You're right. I was in a marriage. I have my kids. I did that part of my life. Now the next part of my life is my part of my life.
That's where I'm at.
I get to make decisions for me. And I get that because the little girl in you is probably saying, oh my God, we're going to lose people. And that's her biggest fear probably. But at the end of the day, she's going to lose herself if we don't do this. And that's too expensive.
Exactly. It's the self-abandoning, which I had to learn all over again. How do you not self-abandon? And for me, that has been a journey of understanding my own boundaries and also understanding what is it about me that allowed for all these different dynamics, not just necessarily in my previous marriage, but other relationships, friend groups, or other dating situations that are now coming up in my tender age of 39. I'm learning it all over again. And it's fun, but also at the same time, a little jarring because you're like, am I seriously responding from that childhood wound still?
Yes.
Because you talk about something that I think is really interesting, and I hope we can dive into it. We respond when we are operating from a wound, right? We respond from the age where that wound was established. We're not responding from our 39-year-old selves. We're responding from the 9-year-old little girl.
Yeah. So that, if you're familiar, if anybody's listening, so IFS parts work, right? So internal family systems. And if you have kids, so you saw Inside Out.
Yeah.
That's a very...
Gabby Bernstein talks about this in Self-Help.
It's a very simplified version, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love IFS. It's Dick Schwartz. He came up with that. And to me, it's the type of therapy. It's the only thing that I'm like, this makes sense to me. And essentially what that means is like we have a million parts, right? So there's a 10-year-old part, a 12-year-old part, the part of you that feels like it got rejected, the part of you feels like it got accepted. And so we have all these different versions. And as a kid, so there's something called egocentric age. From 0 to 7, we as children have to create. They're narcissistic in a good way, meaning that everything is about them. That's how we create, right? If I touch, if I walk, if I feel, I'm attuning to the world around me. And so if, let's say, you have caregivers, like you had shared, your father left early. So at 9 years old, because your brain is so underdeveloped, naturally, because you're a child, if we don't have somebody to step in, and again, this doesn't mean that there's anybody bad that was in your childhood, they didn't know any better. If we didn't have someone step in and say, oh my goodness, this is not because of you, you didn't do anything, your father has his issues, right? Then what happens? We fill in the blank. We fill in the blank of, there must be something wrong with me. I pushed them away. If I were better, they would have stayed.
Right.
That part of you becomes ingrained in you. Then we start to have these protector parts, and those protector parts come out to say, oh, I'm never going to let her get hurt like this again. They're maladaptive. So maybe they learned at that time, shut your mouth. Okay, he left, so now moving forward, you can't open your mouth because if you do, they're going to leave us. So what happens? We become an adult, we're dating, we're going through the lay of the land, and we have our prefrontal cortex and our amygdala, very far from each other. One's up here, one's back there. The prefrontal cortex is what we had talked about earlier that stops growing at 28. That is your decision-making common sense. Notice how you could tell a high schooler not to drink and drive, but they'll do it anyways because they don't have the cognitive ability to challenge their thoughts and think of future them. That's not fully developed yet. So when we are triggered, something happens. And the reality is now in our adult world, the triggers, neutral inaction or action, the pinch doesn't match the ouch, right? If somebody doesn't text you back within 10 minutes and all of a sudden you're having a panic attack, because what happens is your nervous system and your brain are wired for, I need to be hypervigilant, I need to scan for safety, I can never be left again. So it's going to take every cue as danger. What happens? Your prefrontal cortex shuts off. It goes into the survival, the lizard brain, the amygdala. That's your fear center. So when we go to that place, it's going to react in the way that we did as a kid because it's all we know. That's familiar.
So how do we rewire all of that? And how did you rewire all of that?
It takes a few things. I would say the one thing that changed my life, it's so simple, it's so rudimentary, but it literally changed the game for me, was learning how to pause. Learning how to literally...
Did you learn that through meditation?
Yes, and. So the thing about meditation is you don't want to meditate when you're dysregulated. That's actually the worst time. Because think about it. If a tiger was walking by and you're feeling unsafe, are you going to just sit there and be like, it's okay, let me just get zen?
I know.
Right?
I want to spar with the tiger.
Exactly. Your body cannot handle it because you have too much immobilized energy. It doesn't know what to do with it.
So what do we do when we are in that mode?
So in that mode, what you want to do is you want to have like a toolkit. I have like 5 things. You don't need a lot, but it might be something that regulates your nervous system. It brings you back to the present moment. My favorite is either grab ice cubes from your freezer or get some sour candy and keep it all over your house. What ends up happening is you get dysregulated. You get triggered. You start to notice like my chest is pounding, I'm sweating, right? Whatever the physiological cue is that you're no longer on this, like where we are right now. If you take a sour candy, your brain cannot focus on the dysregulation and what's happening in your mouth. So it naturally shocks you back into the present moment. That's how we cut through. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what makes it all okay. It's not like, oh, I put a sour candy.
Develop diabetes, just trying to regulate
right?
myself.
Get some ice cubes. Maybe it means doing
for me.
20 jumping jacks, right? Like if right now I was anxious, what happens is I need to move.
For me, it's moving my body, going for a walk, going for a hike. That usually does it.
Walking,
Shifting
doing anything.
the energy.
And when you're walking too, what you could do is use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in the senses. So 5 things.
Mel Robbins.
No, not even that. No, that's her 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is count it and get up.
Right.
Not a fan of that. I'm talking of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can smell, 2 things I can taste, 1 thing I can hear, whatever.
My therapist talked about that once, trying to bring yourself to the present moment.
Because that's what happens when you're dysregulated, you go back here. When you're regulated, you're in your inner prefrontal cortex and you can make decisions now because then we go, okay, I'm dysregulated, now I'm back. Maybe I went for a walk, maybe I have the ice cubes and I'm like, whoa, okay, Sabrina, you're 35 and you're in your house right now. Okay, yeah, 5 things. Okay, I could see, right? Okay, I'm in my house right now. Then what I would suggest once we're regulated, we're in the moment, the first question I ask is, what are the sensations in my body? I want to connect because we intellectualize. We go into let me think my way through. But what happens is when we ask, why are they doing this? What if? Why aren't they calling me? Why don't they like me? Why aren't they doing this? Those why questions actually keep you away from addressing the pain that's in your body and it keeps you intellectualizing the pain. because your brain thinks if I can understand it, then I won't have to feel it.
Right.
But you need to feel it.
And oftentimes we're not responding properly when we're in that mode, we're reacting.
Yeah, because your cortisol spiked. When your cortisol spikes, your other neurotransmitters deplete. So you're just trying to grip onto anything. So when we bring ourselves back and say, where am I feeling this in my body? Whoa, it's really heavy in my chest. Okay, what's happening in my chest? Like I'm talking, sit with it for a minute. Okay, it's moving. So Jill Bolt-Taylor's a neuroscientist, I could talk. She says it takes 90 seconds for an emotion to run its course. And so right now, let's say hypothetically speaking, you were like, dude, I'm freaking out. This guy I'm dating didn't text me. Fine. If I said, okay, do some jumping jacks. Now sit down. If I said, close your eyes and tell me, where do you feel this in your body? If you and I just talked about the sensation, not the narrative, not the thoughts, not anything, that restarts that 90 seconds.
Let's say I'm feeling it in my gut.
So let's say I'd say, okay, what do you feel in your gut? Does it feel like a swarm of bees? Does it feel like a brick? Does it feel like a black spiky ball? Does it feel like big or small? If
empty. It feels empty.
Okay, if it feels hollow, could you maybe drum in it a little bit? Does it make a noise? If there was a brick on the floor and you took it and you smashed it into a million pieces, where are the pieces right now? When we focus on the sensation, 100%, not even 99.9, 100% of the people I've worked with, when I do this, by the end of the 2 minutes, they go, oh, it dissipated. Oh, it's not as intense. Oh, I don't feel it as much, because we're allowing it to process.
So if we're in a situation where someone does something to upset us, it's not necessarily a guy that doesn't text back, but let's say you're married and you and your husband are having it. How do you get yourself to a point where now you can respond, and how do we want to respond? Is it from an intuitive place? Is it from an emotional place, a logical place? Like, what does it look like to show up differently?
I think it's a few things. I think it's a valid question. Whether you're single, dating, married, it doesn't really matter. We're dealing with relationships.
Right.
So I think at the end of the day, the first thing you want to do is, one, have meta conversations about your conversations. Charles Duhigg is a communication specialist, and we talked about that. And he always says, when you're like, tell your partner, so my partner and I, for instance, he's more avoidant leaning, I'm more anxious leaning.
Okay.
When we have necessary, like something goes, I can see maybe he's like not paying attention, maybe he's shutting down, or I can see my anxiety. We have a code word and he'll say, I'm offline. When I know he's offline, we instantly know we need to take 20 minutes. We need to part because he needs to process and come back on, and I need to go take a walk because neither one of us are really on the same playing field.
Do you think naturally women tend to be more anxious and men tend to be more avoidant? And can you explain in your way, like, what is an anxious, what is an avoidant, what is an anxious avoidant? I mean, we see all these things thrown around so much, but break it down.
So attachment styles are just, how did your parents and caregivers attune to your needs? That's like the simplest.
It all goes back to it.
It does, because it's where you learned it from. That's where your brain, remember, up until you're growing and you're developing. So for a lot of people, and let me preface, it doesn't mean you had bad parents. You don't have to have me or your experience where we had the big T trauma. Right. It could be something as simple as, I used to get bullied at school. Okay, who'd you go to when you came home? Well, I didn't go to my mom. She was too busy. And I didn't go to my dad. He was always working. Okay, so then no one was there to attune to your needs. So you learned at a young age, I can only trust myself. Right. So when we look at it, there are four main attachment styles if we're going to talk about the conversation. There's secure, right? That's the gold standard. We're all trying to get there. Secure really just means that your parents showed you that independence and interdependence are both safe. So you showed that you can give love and you can receive love. You had caregivers that validated your emotions and feelings, that explained, right, that were there for you if something happened. That's just, again, if you had two parents that were able to show up with you like that, and to be a secure attachment, you actually only need that 30% of the time. And so you need facial recognition. So that's like I don't know if you've ever heard of the still face experiment.
No.
It's been done 1,000 times. And they essentially in the 70s had parents sit in front of their babies, and moms were, making facial expressions and connecting. And then they had the mother go completely stoic, just sit there and stare at the kid. And the kid at first, when he starting to try to connect, and you saw either the kid started screaming and crying, going anxious, trying to get the parent to see them, or the kid shut down and just sat there and just went numb. Went over more avoidant because they learned that they couldn't connect with the caregiver. Then they had the mom come back on, the baby connected, and it showed, holy smokes, even just eye contact with the baby early on could impact their life.
Oh my gosh.
So secure is, right, we have people, those are people that are able to emotionally regulate.
Where are these unicorns?
They're out there, but more so what we see is earned secure. And so those are usually people that have done a lot of work. Because I know that the book Attached, Amir Levine said 50% of the population was secure, and he's come out since saying I was wildly off. It is not accurate.
I don't think that's the case, no.
No, it's more like probably 10, 20%. I've met one person in my day that is truly secure, and she's an anomaly, I will say that. And then we go into the insecure attachment styles. We've got just highbrow, we have anxious, avoidant, and disorganized is kind of the amalgamation. The anxious attacher, low sense of self, high sense of others. So they're the type that I need the constant validation, the reassurance.
Putting other people on a pedestal.
It's external. Everything is external. I don't trust myself. I trust you. And so it's constantly trying to seek that external. You notice that those are the people that they don't really... The hard thing is a lot of anxious attachers will say, well, at least I communicate. And it's like, no, you don't. You talk. Anxious attachers will throw, and they're so dysregulated, you can
What's
tell.
the difference between someone who's talking versus communicating?
Talking is, there's no processing. There's no filter. When you're communicating, you're being selective about how I'm saying something. So for instance, if you say something like my partner said no to me once, my initial reaction was, go fuck yourself. What do you fucking mean?
It's a New Yorker in you.
Exactly. And that's my dad. Like, that's just that scream at them, yell at them. And instead I stopped and I thought, and I said, okay, what's triggering me? And I sat with it and I was like, well, this reminded me of dad. And so I went to my partner. I said, can I share something with you? When you said no, that really triggered me and it made me shut down. And I kind of wanted to react to you. But to be fair, you didn't do anything wrong. Moving forward, could you actually say this? And he was like, oh my God, of course. I'm so sorry. You're right. That was really rude. And I was able to move on.
Well, that comes with so much self-awareness, Sabrina.
It's taken me years. And that's like my partner and I, it's not about the conflict, it's our repair. We have repair language that really helps us.
Bounce back rate.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the anxious, right? So the anxious, we've seen them. They're the ones that'll text you 1,000 times. Why aren't they texting me? What? The hypervigilance, constantly saying, I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be left. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of these people. Childhood. Then we go the anxious or the avoidant, complete polar opposite. We have, and what I mean by polar opposite is how they show up. Both people have anxiety. Avoidant people are anxious and anxious people are avoidant. But the avoidant, they see it as low sense of others, high sense of self. So we see that prevalent, and like my sister's more avoidant. She learned growing up, what's the point of saying anything? No one's listening to me. I can only rely on myself. I don't trust any of you. Hyper independence, very emotions aren't safe. Vulnerability isn't safe. Now, the thing is, we need to be able to differentiate because we hear a lot of this garbage on the internet of like, avoidants are the worst people. They're not. They're actually really incredible people with their own lived experience. You're just dating assholes. You're just dating people that don't know how to communicate.
Do avoidants tend to be narcissists?
Not always. Narcissists are always avoidant. Avoidants are not always narcissist.
Okay.
So there's two different things. Yeah. So because narcissism is part of the triangle, it's like sociopath, psychopath, narcissism. So it's a triangle. I always forget, triangle of darkness or something like that. But narcissism is its own.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, that's its own breed of human. But no, not all avoidants are narcissists. But in avoidance, they're not, neither the avoidant nor the anxious are emotionally available because emotional availability is tapping into what's coming up for you, being able to express that, regulating your emotions, and neither
communicating it in a healthy way.
Exactly. Then we go disorganized. The disorganized is low sense of self and low sense of others. It's kind of its own hell. The disorganized is very palpable. And it's not, I think a lot of people misconstrue. It's not that you're anxious with some people and avoidant with others. No, what that just means your nervous system is vacillating between the sympathetic and dorsal. What the disorganized actually is that push-pull. I want love. Oh, no, but I'm scared and I remove myself.
That's me.
Okay, yeah. Usually
classic runner.
Prevalent, especially, it might not be your history, but with a lot of people with homes of abuse. Think about they go to their caregiver for love and that's the person that inflicts pain. So they want love, but they're terrified of love. And that's its own hell, where the minute you get anxious when they're not calling, then the minute they show closeness, you want to run away.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So, and it's very real. And each one of them has their own healing and each one of them has to go through and say, okay, where did it, like for me with my anxiety, when I would get triggered and go right into that negative spiral, I'd have to stop and go, whoa, what are the facts to back this up?
Right.
Are we projecting right now? Hey, I think you literally, as if you're having a cup of coffee with a friend.
But we project because it's like our experiences are just a collection of all of our past experiences and thoughts. Yeah. So what we're seeing in this moment, it's not necessarily the moment because we don't know what that person is doing. We don't know what our husband is up to. We don't know what our wives are doing in that moment, right? But we project the experience because you're invalidated, you're unloved, you're all these things.
It's a very prevalent, we see that with black and white thinking.
Black
and white thinking is a really detrimental thought process. So black and white thinking is good or bad, yes or no. It has to be this or this. So,
assigning definitive meaning to things.
Exactly. So black and white thinking in this kind of realm would be, well, if he wanted to, he would. And you're like, okay, what that's
everywhere now, right? On social media.
It's all you see because it's a quick, it's a 140 characters or less. It's a bumper sticker. It's I can say this because it omits anything from me. Black and white thinking is if he doesn't text you, he doesn't like you. And you're like, wait. So there's no other lived experience. There's no nuance. There's no gray. There's no understanding. And for a lot of people, we get stuck in that because it's either I need to be good, so I need to make you bad. Because then when you start to heal and you start to do the work, you start to realize, oh, there is no good or bad. Oh,
we're all shades of gray.
so many shades of gray. And that's what I think, you take the black and white and you create the gray.
Huh, I love that. Okay, so we mentioned narcissism. It gets thrown around a lot. What is narcissism in your idea?
So there's narcissistic personality disorder. Now that is, NPD is something that, and the reason people are like, well, nobody diagnoses, it's like, yeah, because Freud has always said the one person that a therapist cannot work with is a narcissist. Then
I've heard that.
Narcissists don't believe that it's them. They genuinely believe that they are the center of their own universe. It is a high sense of self and a low sense of everyone else. Narcissism is actually something developed between 0 to 1. It's my mother has a narcissist specialist therapist, and I've talked to him before. And it's in the symbiotic phase that there's a disconnection between the mother and the child. Typically speaking, you see a narcissist, look at their mom. Look at the mother and you'll see, you're like, oh, there's an unhealthy dynamic there. And with narcissism, there's different types. Like I'm talking about the traditional, there's covert, there's, malignant, there's all these. But narcissists don't take accountability. They will deflect and make everything somehow becomes your fault. That's it. It always revolves around you. So you notice how if a narcissist yells at you, well, you made me yell at you. You didn't, right? And you're like, oh, of course it's my fault.
It's gaslighting.
Completely. They have zero empathy. Empathy is not in there. It's, oh, you're hurting. Like I'll never forget, I was on the floor.
It's your fault.
He stepped over me. I was on the floor. I said, I need to go to the hospital. I was having these crazy stomachs, and my ex stepped over me and said, get the fuck over it. You're not the only person who's ever been in pain. I have a meeting. Just didn't care.
My God, Sabrina.
Then my sister had to come pick me up and take me to the hospital. And then he was mad at me that he had to come pick me up at the hospital because I inconvenienced his day.
Yeah, but what does that do to you? Because you're constantly feeling like, I'm not even allowed to get sick.
No. So what that does as the person on the receiving end, for me, that was familiar. That was my dad. Of course I'm inconveniencing you. Duh, I'm here. I'm breathing. That's an inconvenience to you. Because no matter what, it was always that we are a burden. I am so sorry for being here. So when that's your baseline, then of course, because what happens, the narcissists, they come on strong, they love bomb. And why do they love bomb? Now, not everybody that love bombs is a narcissist. Some people love bomb and come on of like, within a day, they're telling you you're the love of their life and they want you to meet their friends and family and you want to go on trips and we should be exclusive after one date. And it's like the pinch doesn't match.
We don't know each other.
Exactly. You're like, relax. And the reason people love bombs, some people do it for safety because they want to make sure you're not going to leave them. And other people do it, narcissists do it because what they do is they can break your boundaries down. If they can get you, so they come on really strong and they get you to love them, they get you to put your boundaries down and say, oh, they love me, they care about me. And then they go through the devalue stage. That's when they start to go, oh yeah, you look nice and white for your skin tone. And you're like, huh? That you start to get the backhanded compliments. Well, if your anxiety wasn't so high, maybe we could have a better. And you're like, oh, all of a sudden, but because they loved you at one point, you're like, oh, they're doing this because they care about me. They're doing this because they love me. It's a strategic breakdown. Then they go, once they devalue you, when they have no more use for you, they discard you. My father said to my mother directly after their divorce, you no longer serve a purpose for me. That was his direct words to her. And she was like, oh my God. And that snapped her out. But my mother grew up with trauma, grew up with being a second-class citizen to everybody, grew up with her needs didn't mean anything. So of course, my father belittling her, putting her down, telling her she's all these things, she believed it. Her core beliefs were reaffirmed by the partner that she had.
Right. I understand that all too well.
Same.
Right. And I think we subconsciously, when we're choosing from an unhealed place or an immature place, we are subconsciously choosing partners who are going to confirm in us everything we believe to be true in our core. Now looking back, when I chose my ex-husband, aside from him having wonderful qualities, I think he also confirmed in me something that I felt very insecure about at a young age, was the fact that I came from a broken home. So I went into this very structured Armenian family thinking that that's what I need.
Right.
Without even understanding. And I think through the years, as those things become confirmed in you, you just get deeper and deeper into that connection and into that codependency because you think, I need this to be safe.
Trauma bond.
Trauma bond.
Right there.
So many different types of trauma bonds.
It's almost like Stockholm Syndrome when you think about it, right?
Right.
Like your captor becomes the person that you think is going to save you.
Mm-hmm. I read something recently that said, if you want to break a pattern, you have to make different choices. How do you interpret that? This is something that I'm working on now where I have to look at, okay, these are my boundaries. I'm just not worrying about anyone else. This is who I am. This is what I want. These are my boundaries. And I'm going to convey them in a very healthy way, or at least I'm going to try. And you can just meet me there.
And I'm glad, I'm so happy you didn't say, and if they cross it, because Nobody crosses your boundaries.
No, it's not about crossing a boundary. It's about but here's the thing. Because we're so used to that dopamine hit from any relationship, right? You're used to the attention, the love, the this. You're always craving that. We all are. We're human. We're not a block of stone. So anyone who gives us that, it's like, oh, that feels nice. But are you actually giving me what I want? Are you actually meeting my needs? Are you actually respecting my boundaries? That's the question you need to be asking, which is something I've had to learn now in this second chapter of my life.
100%.
But it's liberating. It's great because it's like, okay, this is the roadmap to who I am. And I had Terry Cole on as a guest very early on. She's the boundary queen, where she described it beautifully. She said, letting someone know your boundaries is giving them a roadmap to how to love you.
100%.
Which is so beautiful if you think about it.
You teach people what you're willing to, by what you allow is how you teach them to treat you, right? So like for me.
We teach people how to love us.
Boundaries, and for anybody that's listening, boundaries are not if you start a boundary with you, or you can't do this, like a boundary isn't you can't talk to women, you can't do this. It's like that's control and that's a request. A boundary is I'm not going to go out after 9. You can ask me out after 9. That doesn't, or I don't answer my phone after 9. If you call me after 9, you didn't cross my boundary. You just didn't maybe listen to me. I cross my boundary if I answer. So if I say I don't answer after 9, my phone's on Do Not Disturb. I said I don't answer. That's my boundary. No, I don't go, like I don't drink alcohol. So that's my boundary. I'm not going to let you push that. But you didn't do anything. So I think to the point of, if you want to break the pattern, here's a fun fact. It takes 300 repetitions for your body to remember a new move. So think about going to the gym. You have to do 300 reps before your body understands the movement. For your brain to create a new neural pathway, you need to repeat the same thing 3,000 times.
3,000 times.
3,000 times for your brain to create.
That's a lot of lessons, Sabrina.
That's
I don't
a
have
lot.
The time.
More so about, let's say, for instance, if you want to create a new pattern where you say no instead of yes, so then it's about working through saying no 3,000 times before that becomes more autopilot for you to go, no, thank you.
Yeah. It's about honoring your standards and living up to them yourself. And not taking the easy way where, okay, you're calling me at 9. I guess I could go out. All right, just wait, I'll be there.
Right.
That's violating your own boundary. It's not about the person. It's not their fault they're inviting you out at 9 o'clock. That's all they know, or that's what they want. They want something else. Who knows? That's not your business.
They're testing too.
Or even in a marriage, it's like if your partner wants something from you and you're not comfortable doing it, it's not about what they're asking you. It's about how you are going to set that standard and how you are going to say no to enforce that boundary in a kind way.
100%. That I would not be where I'm at today if I didn't show up differently. When I was dating prior, if a guy played games with me, don't say anything, just play cool. Don't rock the boat, Sabrina, just be cool. Just be cool, man. Just play the cool girl. And the cool girl doesn't win. Why? Because she's one-dimensional. The cool girl, the nice guy, they don't go further.
And it's exhausting to hold up that type of false sense of like, I don't care.
We all
needs.
care. We all have needs. We all care. We are all human. And so the more, like I remember, so my partner and I slept with him on the first date. And I know, oh my God, faux pas. No, it's because I was with a guy prior that I hadn't had sex in months, and he had like issues, and I was done with that. And so when I met my partner, I remember my dog had just passed away. I had just lost Shark Tank. I was all of these things. I just started this career. I had nothing. So I was like, meh, whatever. I'll only go out for a good time. I'll have a good time. I'll see this guy. And when I left, people to this day are like, you said this to him? I'm like, why wouldn't I? I asked on the first date about politics, race, religion, all of that. Because if you have differing, like wildly differing opinions, well, then why would I continue? But the reason we have the relationship we have is because from the day when we left, I said, hey, I looked him in the eyes after dinner and I said, I had so much fun with you tonight. And if this is all it was, thank you for a great night. I'm glad we got to have fun and we got to do this. But if you call me again, that's because you and I are building something. If you want to see me and continue, I don't do the hookup. I don't do the booty call. So if you're doing this, it's because we're going to invest. And if not, I really wish you all the best.
But how sexy is that kind of confidence?
He looked at me and I asked him, I said, why did you like that? And he was like, because you weren't afraid to lose me. And he was like, that was really hot because I knew you wanted me. You didn't need me. There's nothing worse. I've had my friend went on a date and the girl was like, within 30 minutes, you're not going to ghost me, right? Like, you're going to tell me you're not going to ghost me because like, I like totally can't handle it. Started freaking out. And he was like, dude, I don't know you.
Yeah, that's like major desperate energy.
It's just thirsty.
Yeah.
And again, if you're in a relationship and you're like, I'm not dating, I don't know, that's okay. We have to be honest with it. There's nobody that's going to be more invested in the unhealed version of you than maybe somebody that's been getting away with shit because of it. So if you have a partner, right, if anyone's listening going, I think my husband's a narcissist. Okay, well then you either accept it or you move on from it. There's no changing them. There's no because if you have a partner that doesn't see a problem in their behavior, well, how are you going to work through it? You can only heal so much for you. But that's not going to change the dynamic of the relationship because that person's invested in the unhealed version of you.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about energy. There is a lot of talk on social media about matching energy versus protecting your energy, which kind of goes back to boundaries. But can you dive into that a little?
Totally. There's a big, I hate match that energy. It's like, why am I watering myself down?
Yeah, that was Kristen Cavallari.
Why am I watering myself down? Why am I turning into a version of myself that doesn't align with who I authentically am because you're giving me this bullshit? Instead, there's a difference between match that energy and protecting your own energy. Matching their energy would be, they don't call me, I'm not calling them. They don't text me, I don't text them. Instead of saying, they haven't called me, they haven't texted me, I'm going to get turned off and just move on with my life. I get to make a choice.
That shows more power.
I get to make, because then if they contact me, I go, no, thank you. I'm not matching it. They took an hour, I'm going to take an hour. They do this, I do this. So I'm just mirroring, I'm just mimicking, I'm living life for them, not for me. But there's a way of preserving my energy. So if I see that it's not being reciprocated, I move on. I look at it our day like a battery. You only have so much energy in the day to get you through. So you need to learn where you're going to use it wisely, because right now is the youngest both of us will ever be.
Right.
So if I'm going to sit here and put all of this energy into people, relationships, friends, whatever, and I'm not getting anything reciprocated and it's draining me, I look at like a bank account. Am I profiting and in the green? Yeah, let's keep this relationship going. We're making progress. Or am I in the red? My needs are never met. I'm constantly depleted. It feels like I'm giving and getting nothing in return. Then to stop matching their energy and start holding on to yours, because ain't nobody going to show up for you like you'll show up for you.
And I think it's a matter of asking yourself, how do you really want to live? I read something recently that said, if you want to always be chased, be prepared to always run. Do you really want to live in that state of mind where you're manipulating someone to constantly chase you and do all these little things? Or do you actually just want to set your standard and see how they show up?
Yeah.
And a lot of it does come down to you being so happy on your own and being also just confident in saying, I'm good. If you're not going to match that, then it's not worth it to me to get into this chaos.
No.
But it's also cutting off that addiction to the chaos.
Yes, the addiction to dopamine, and we have to remember when cortisol. So when we're chasing, when we're stressed, your cortisol is spiking. What happens when your cortisol go up? All of your neurotransmitters get depleted.
Right.
Your dopamine, your serotonin, all of it, norepinephrine. So if we really want to stop that, then one, we have to get off the dopamine receptor. We have to get off that train. How do you actually get off that train? One, it's a detox. So I have a breakup course with my friend, and she's a neuropsychotherapist, and she always says, you need 3 weeks, no contact, no nothing.
21 days, essentially.
21 days, not even a photo, not a text, not an Insta, nothing. We need to remove this person. That doesn't mean that if they come in your mind, you're like, nope, doesn't exist. No, you can validate that they come in,
right.
The external. But we really want to actually balance out your dopamine receptors. The one thing that gives you dopamine yourself, which most people don't know, is if you show yourself compassion. It gives you dopamine. And that way, that's what I mean by, okay, what am I waiting for? Why aren't they texting me and calling me? What are my choices? Oh, I can say that I'm really proud of myself that I didn't reach out. I just gave myself what I've been waiting for them to give me, and I'm in control of my own life and destiny.
And I think you can give others compassion too, because you mentioned people are not necessarily operating from a black and white, good and evil. So many of us so nuanced. And also at the same time, it's like this person is only trying to take advantage of something because they see a weakness in you. It's not an evil thing necessarily. It's really just their own unhealed traumas and how they are going to try and take from you. And so it's like giving that person love by saying, oh, you really are dealing with something, but I don't need to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
I can unsubscribe.
Yeah.
I get that every day. I'll get people that'll attack me on the internet, and it's like I could go bananas on them, and instead I'm like, you sound like you're hurting right now.
Yeah,
and I
hurt people.
Yeah, I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
But we have to remember, here's the one thing I think that anybody needs to hear. You're not going to be able to change other people.
No.
And the more we try to change them, it's a futile effort, because let me ask you, did that work with your parents? I didn't think so. So stop trying to replicate. That's repetition compulsion. Repetition compulsion is a Freudian term. We are going to keep repeating the patterns that we have, because what we're hoping is if I have these childhood core beliefs and wounds. So I was doing repetition compulsion dating my father, because if my ex could validate me and tell me I'm not too much and all that, then it'll make all of that go away. But what happens is then I keep dating those wounded parts, and then they keep reaffirming it, and it cements it. And that's why it's harder. So when we look at it and say, well, what's my part in it? It's not that what's my fault. You didn't do anything wrong per se. We have to get rid of that verbiage.
But accountability.
What's my part? Okay, so I get this all the time of I only date emotionally unavailable people. What's wrong? I'm showing up. I want a relationship. It's like, no, you're emotionally unavailable as well. How are you showing up? Are you having hard conversations? No, I can't say that. It'll be too much. Okay, and then you wonder why these people are coming to you. You have a relationship with someone that's wildly avoidant, that doesn't know how to process their feelings, can't regulate, doesn't know how to have a conversation, because in the past you've allowed that.
Do you think that's what's wrong with dating today? People are just not saying what they're feeling and thinking and wanting.
I think
And everyone's just trying to be cool.
I think we're very disconnected from ourselves, and that's showing up in our dating experience. Because when you're disconnected from yourself, how are you going to demand that in the landscape of going out? You'll just take what you can get. Or you'll take what looks good, what looks shiny out first. Instead of learning to sit in the discomfort, like it's one thing I teach all the time of, okay, so you're anxious. Well, you don't have to do anything about it. I don't like ice baths, but I do them because I know that they're beneficial for me. I sit through the discomfort to expand my window of tolerance. And your window of tolerance just essentially means what you can handle before you get dysregulated or shut down.
Right.
We want to expand that so that when someone texts you or says something, okay, wow, I just sat for a minute and I didn't make a reaction. Holy smokes, I expanded my window of tolerance. It gets better and better the more you do it. And that's how you change.
And this brings us to rejection is redirection.
I love rejection as redirection. Rejection, and I understand if you have I have ADHD.
But that's really hard for someone who has that abandonment wound
Of course.
to understand that rejection is redirection as opposed to rejection simply as I'm not good enough.
Well, but see, that's the thing. When I hear that, and it's totally valid 100%, so then what that person's telling me, so it was never about the other person. It's about you.
Right.
Or so then why are we even talking about that person? So you shouldn't be dating anybody because part of, for me, I know for you, we're both in a profession where we're putting ourselves out there. I get rejected every single day. And if every person that disagreed with me and came to me and told me that I should change who I am and I should speak slower and I should do all these things, if I bent over and was like, oh, they hate me. Well, so then I'm allowing their opinion of me to dictate who I am and to determine my self-worth. I understand, as I have ADHD, rejection sensitivity is a very real thing. We perceive everything, but because we're taking it personally. And that's where we have to stop and say, wait a minute, okay, my narrative, the story I've created, that's some of my favorite thing. This person broke up, or this person says they don't want it, whatever, right? This person has rejected me. The story I've created is because I'm not good enough. Okay, what facts do I have to back up that person didn't like me because I'm not good enough?
Versus they didn't like me because of their own issues.
Maybe this person likes blondes and I'm a brunette. Maybe when we were on the date, I said something and the person went, nope, not negotiable. No, thank you.
That's fine.
That's fine. They're allowed to do
because
that.
That's going to come up later.
Dating,
do you really want it to come up later or do you want to just nip it in the bud now?
It's data collection.
Right.
So if we're going to look at this, and that's why I'm like, rejection's redirection, because it allows you to make space for what's actually for you. And I know in the moment it's really scary. This was a few months ago, I auditioned to be a host on a show. You know how it goes. We'll call you. Never heard. And what happened? I turned the TV on and there it was. There was this other person. Oh my God, the show is made. So I really didn't get it. Oh, okay. And it could have taken this. They didn't like me. What's wrong with me? And instead I watched it and I let my little know, I'm not rejecting you. I think you're good enough and I think you're amazing. And as I watched it, I said, by the way, we didn't want this. That's not our show. That's not for us. It would not have been good for my career. And that's why I was like, this was not for me. And I had to, in the moment, did I think of it? Yeah, it hurt that they didn't choose me, but I choose myself and I know what I'm doing. So if I can carry that into relationships where if somebody I'm dating just says, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm not feeling it. The story I'm creating is it's something about me, but that's my childhood core beliefs coming out. So if I can say, well, what is my little need? She needs to know that no matter what, she doesn't have to perform and I love her, even though we didn't get picked by him because I choose her.
Right. You choose her.
That's going to change the game because then I don't allow their rejection to mean anything about my self-worth. It's just, thank you so much for letting me free. Now thanks for not blocking the door because now I can let somebody else in.
And looking at relationships from in the sense of like, I'm not here to be chosen by you. I'm here to choose you. And I think that's very empowering.
Yeah.
So you've come such a long way. I mean, it's so incredible to hear you speak because you're like a wealth of knowledge and it really shows that you're so invested and you've done the work. Formerly the name of your podcast.
I was going to say, careful.
Looking back now, how do you make sense of how far you've come and how do you feel about yourself now?
I am a human and some days I still put myself down. And there are days like yesterday, I started getting in my head. I was like, why isn't the podcast growing? Why aren't we doing this? What happened last year before the name change? And I had to stop and I said, okay, that's a protector part. And she's really trying to protect me because she's scared of losing everything. And she's scared of having to go back to dad and ask him for something. That's our biggest fear. And I said, I'm going to be nice to myself and say I'm proud of myself. I viscerally felt it in my body that was really uncomfortable because that's not what she needed to hear. That part of me needed to hear, thank you for letting me know. And so I'm still learning. Every day I wake up and I look at triggers as an opportunity for me to get deeper into understanding myself. And if I have one life, I might as well get to know myself. And I think I love the girl that was with my ex. I love every single part of me, because if I hate her, then I'm just going to balance and I'm just going to be battling myself the entire time. And instead I say, I'm not too much, I'm just enough, and I'm not for you. That's okay. Because I genuinely believe that about myself. And every day I reaffirm that to myself.
What I love about this work is that we are essentially learning self-mastery. And that's really the reason why we're here on, in this life and on this planet, is really to understand ourselves so we can navigate the world in a better way for our soul's evolution. So thank you so much for creating this dialogue, for doing your work, for putting this content out there. It's so refreshing and so valuable. So thank you so, so much.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Breaking Through with Alina Abervian. For our community to grow, please like and share, and also leave a review on this episode. Of course, you can find me on social media and let me know what you'd like to talk about in future episodes. Nothing is off limits, so let's have some fun.